What we saw when they implemented this was, 2 to 3x in adoption increases. So previously they were seeing 20 to 30% adoption. Afterwards, they were seeing 60 to 80%. We're seeing on average enterprises spend what I think it's like $1,000 on average per user per year on training. This cuts it in half, essentially.
All very effective stuff. What are we labeling this? What are we branding this? Is it like
The
15-minute
15-minute rule. Keep it simple.
the 15-minute rule, like 15 minutes a day
15 minutes for the week, not
for the
even a day.
week? For
Yep,
the week.
just
It
one
sounds
time.
very simple. Okay.
Mhm.
You're listening to Unchurned, brought to you by the Gainsight Podcast Network. Most enterprise AI pilots fail because employees are overwhelmed. Kat Valverde created the 15-minute rule. 4 weeks, 15 minutes each. And she tripled adoption to 80%. In this short episode, she breaks down exactly how it works. I'm Josh Schachter, and this is Unchurned. Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Unchurned. I'm your host, Josh Schachter, and I'm here for this short episode with Cat Valverde. Kat is the founder of Enterprise AI Group, and we're here to talk to her about, well, what she's doing with enterprise AI. Kat, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so first, we want to get into a specific topic here. Before we do that, tell them a little bit about what you're doing with enterprise customers.
Yeah, we're doing a few different things. We're a B2B solutions provider for AI businesses who are looking to get in front of enterprises or mid-market buyers. And then we're also an advisory firm on the enterprise buyer side, where we're helping them with best practices on how to implement AI across their teams.
My understanding is that you are speaking intimately with a lot of enterprise stakeholders, decision makers, buyers, implementers of AI and their AI transformation. Tell us a little bit about the forums that you're in with enterprise figureheads, who the folks are that you're talking to, and then what it is that you're hearing.
Yes. So we run roundtables every month for ourselves just to keep a hand on the pulse of the industry. And in those, we have a mix of buyers and sellers. And, what we're trying to do is really understand what the challenges are, what the successes are, and create an opportunity for everybody to come together and share that in a really safe way. And what we've learned over the last year has remained steadfast. On the enterprise side, it's adoption. How can you get out of this pilot fatigue and get these things into production in a successful way? And on the seller side, of course, they are focused on how can they get in front of the questions that the buyers will have. So, what is AI? How do you, or what is ROI? Excuse me. How do you really measure it? And how can the sellers make this case to the C-suite, to the decision makers, and really like help them alleviate their concerns or fears when it comes to risk?
ROI is a big one.
Hmm.
It's a huge opportunity with agentic, but it's also something that's stifling a lot of folks right now. We're still in the early days, so outcome-based pricing, all that kind of stuff. I'm really eager to see where that leads. Okay, so for folks that are adopting AI, kinda like adoption light, so they're piloting. These are large organizations, right, where they have to go through pilot, they have to work with IT, do it properly. It's not just shadow AI, shadow IT. What generally are the trends that you're seeing that are holding up the graduation of those pilots into larger scale implementations?
I can really boil it down to one. If we had one KPI we had to measure and that was it, it would be internal adoption. So what you're seeing is this huge gap between pilot and production. And at the enterprise side, money isn't necessarily a problem. Like fighting for budget is, but holistically, they have the cash to do these pilots. What they don't have is the time. And there's two levels of fatigue. There's the decision fatigue on finding another vendor, doing another pilot, and then all the way down, there's a fatigue from the masses who are actually doing the work, right? Like, oh, okay, here's another test that we have to run for another month. And, now there's another training. So, there's fatigue on both ends that they're having to work through. And the more you do it, the less effective it is.
So there's whiplash. There's
Mhm.
whiplash. There's so many different AI agentic tools out there, which is amazing. And, some of the future unicorns, but also some future bubble busted companies, right? And you're telling me that there's whiplash from the buyers and the users within that froth.
Yeah, and what's so interesting is the features that we see, that me just a surface level, I would say, oh wow, this vendor has 10 different features, a dozen different features that I can apply to all these different work streams across teams. This is wonderful. But from the user's perspective, when it comes to training on these new pilots, it's overwhelming. That it's
Hmm.
not necessarily a good thing because where do you start? how do you train the trainer? And then how does that trickle down in a way that makes a 30-day pilot, let's say, actually useful?
Yeah, because we're all learning together basically right now.
Exactly.
Okay, you have a recipe for better, faster, more effective implementation. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, everything that we're doing, we're really trying to be human focused and really understand the psychology behind, in this case, implementation, like what is actually happening. And it's easy to say, oh, it's fear, right? I don't want AI to take my job, which is understandable. And certainly that is part of it. But
It's a nice headline.
right, exactly. And I get it. I think we're all living in this unknown where, the other headlines we're seeing are also scary. So, fair enough. But in reality, and even when we're doing surveys across our clients and, looking to do pilots of our own, what we're actually seeing is, yes, fear is a part of it, but there's a secondary type of fear where, you're fearful of asking questions, of coming across as incompetent, as not understanding the training, and then of course being overwhelmed by all of these features. And that's actually the primary driver that is killing adoption.
Hmm.
It can be caused by a ton of different things, right? From top down, but that's really what the employees themselves are reporting to us.
It's like the fear of asking the stupid question
Yeah.
or not being caught up to your peers. Okay. So
Yes.
so how do we overcome that? How do we drive towards greater adoption?
Yeah, so this is all based on having at least 30 days of an active pilot. So cut out implementation and onboarding and all of that. Giving your team 4 weeks to get to know all of this, so that at the end of this month you have solid data to compare against your hypothesis. It's all based on that at 15 minutes a week. And what you do is you start week one. You start by saying, listen, this is a micro commitment. Just spend 15 minutes today clicking around. Here's
Who
the
is sorry, when you say you start, this is the enterprise leader? This is the group
Oh, I'm
leader,
so
the
sorry.
team manager?
Yes.
Who is this?
So this is going to be, you'll first roll this out to your, mid-layer management, and it works at this level. But then what you're doing is you're training your trainer to then roll this out to the end users. So your employees on the front lines that will actually be implementing this into their workflows, right?
Okay.
So, you first want to make sure that you are rolling this out to your management team. Let them try it out, and then let it roll downhill.
Well, you
Eh,
say that obviously, but that may not be obvious for
right.
some folks.
True. So what you do is you say, okay, week one, this is a micro commitment, and you're really trying to focus on how you are phrasing this to the end user. This isn't forceful. This is, hey, this is a new product that we are trying out. Spend 15 minutes today or tomorrow if you can, just familiarizing yourself. It doesn't have to be anything serious. Just click around, see what it looks like, make sure it works well, it's not crashing out on you, and you leave it at that. There's no additional ask. There's no follow up. This is where it's at. Here's how you open it. Report back if you see bugs, and just click around and see what things look like.
15 minutes a day
15 minutes for the week,
for
not
the
even a day.
week. For
Yep,
the week.
just
It
one
sounds
time.
very simple. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So you
It
keep
sounds
it
simple,
super
but then
small.
again, so does it sounds simple and small, but then again, like doing my monthly expense reports also does, and
Right.
sometimes like don't find the 15 minutes for that, right? But okay, so 15 minutes a week just to open whatever agentic AI application you're using and just click a bunch of buttons, right? And learn and have questions to bring back. Okay, and so that's week one. Now, what do we do in week two?
So in week two, you are moving into what we call the choice architecture. So again, this isn't a forcing function. You want to keep autonomy really clear, and you're asking each individual, "Hey, just pick a feature." And this goes back to what I was saying, how many features can be very overwhelming. We're saying just pick one that looks interesting, and again, spend 15 minutes for this week just digging into it. Click around, see what it's all about, make sure it works well, report bugs back to us, and keeping it really light. And again, you leave it at that. And then the following week is when they're going to be reporting back on their findings.
And so week two again is just 15 minutes. 15 minutes for week one, 15 minutes of playing around for week two. We can all do it. Okay. Bring us into week three.
Yeah, exactly. So, you're halfway through at this point, 2 of the 4 weeks. And what you're really trying to do is build momentum. And whenever you do this in small increments, that's what you're doing is they've already started. And so if you can get them to actually start, then you're much more likely to get them to build on that. So on week three, you are then in team meetings, team Slack, whatever makes sense based on the department. You are asking for volunteers to give a 30-second, 60-second, shout out to whatever feature they tried, and explaining like, oh, did you know it did this, or oh, I learned this. Just a really quick understanding that they clicked around and here's what they learned. And what you're seeing there is social proof, which is not that surprising for how humans work. If you see people talking about something that they found interesting, you're much more likely to check it out yourself, to provide your own feedback. And that's really what this is all about. So you do that as many times as come up organically throughout that week, but at least get a handful of people to report on what they found.
It almost and then that's it. And then you just kind of rinse and repeat, right?
That's it.
Yeah. So it almost feels to me like you're building like a nesting program, like back to like the call center days. You're building like a cohort to just take one discrete workflow task use case at a time and together learn it, like, and then just go and have a quick little half hour seminar and talk through it or whatever that time of that meeting is. And then, yeah.
Right. That's really it. And by the time you get to week 4, that's when you do make an ask. You still really focus on autonomy and letting them choose their own adventure. But what you're saying is, okay, whatever feature you picked, now apply that to some sort of a real world task.
Yeah.
And we see this is a differentiator from what typical rollouts are, in that usually it's, okay, we're adding this to our workflow, or here's a new piece of our stack and we need to integrate it. But that is intangible and overwhelming, and nobody really knows what that means. By
Right.
asking them to do something specific, like, hey, use this new feature to summarize a client call, or use this to make a call on emails with this keyword, or whatever is most useful and aligns with the features that they chose. Again, it's still only, about 15 minutes, maybe even less, but they're seeing it in the real world. And what you're also doing is guaranteeing that they are adopting it in some way. So you're also getting data into how it's actually working.
So you're guaranteeing adoption, or you're stacking the cards
Hmm.
by making this more digestible and snackable, reducing cognitive load, creating a little bit of social proofing and peer pressure, if you want to call it. And then I had an old business school professor that would call it creating more proximate objectives, more like short term, smaller objectives rather than just a larger thing. And as you were talking, I recalled that you have a master's in psychology. So
Yes. So I thank you for the upgrade. Still studying on this one, but yeah, it's all in organizational psychology. And no surprise, that's exactly what this is all focused on: is human behavior, and
yeah,
really borrowing from those playbooks and focused on productivity psychology.
yeah, one of my favorite business books, The Power of Habit. I'm sure that's on your
Exactly,
yeah.
right. It's forming habits, it's building momentum. And what I think is really interesting about this when it comes to training a department, let's say, because you're letting them have the autonomy on what interests them, that alone is incentive to, dig around into what individuals find interesting. But then you're also creating different pockets of understanding across the teams. So if someone is learning a different feature and they remember, oh, so and so talked about this in the meeting, I know they know how to use it, I'm going to go ask them. You've now also created this kind of group training
Mhm.
program that is collaborative.
I love it. I love everything about it. It's so
Yeah.
simple. Okay, so um, let's give this some credibility. Like, does this really work at a real enterprise? Does it work at 1,000 person company, a 10,000 person company? What have you seen as far as wins and outcomes?
Yeah, so we did a, post-mortem on a group of 200 employees. So it was 50 leaders and then 200 employees, 250 for the survey. And what we saw when they implemented this was, 2 to 3x in adoption increases. So previously they were seeing 20 to 30% adoption. Afterwards, they were seeing 60 to 80%. And it was a mix of enterprises and mid-market. We do have some SMBs as well that this works on. Obviously, it's a smaller sample size, so you can extrapolate from there. But the bigger, the better, and the data shows that really. And from there, you can extrapolate all kinds of other KPIs. We're seeing on average enterprises spend what I think it's like $1,000 on average per user per year on training. This cuts it in half essentially per user per year. So that's $500 savings.
Yep.
Obviously the efficiency that you're building in to time savings per user, which was the whole point theoretically on adopting the AI to begin with. And then ideally, it all boils down to a successful pilot that then you can push into production.
All very effective stuff. What are we labeling this? What are we branding this? Is it like
The
15 minute
15-minute rule. Keep it simple.
the 15-minute rule, like 5 minute
Mhm.
abs, the 15-minute rule? Okay.
Exactly.
Kat, where can folks reach you if they'd like to follow up?
Thank you. Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn, Cat Valverde. I think I'm the only one, but you can So subscribe to our daily newsletter at enterpriseaisolutions.io, or you can email me directly at cat@eais.io.
Thank you for being on the program.
Thanks, Josh.